Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Good news, bad news. Bad news is I'm the last hurdle before you get your lunch. Good news, I have been asked to reduce my presentation, so I'll be very quick. But I'll take 30 minutes at most. Usually, at the start of my CFO trainings, I ask one blunt question. And the question is that if the business world in the last 15 years, on a scale of 1 to 10, has changed by 10, how much finance function has changed? Let me repeat the question. If the business world in the last 15 years, on a scale of 1 to 10, has changed by 10, how much finance function has changed? And guess what the answer is? It has been consistently between around 5 and 6. And realize that this question is to the CFOs and senior finance executives who know the function very well, who own the function. Imagine if we ask this question to CEOs, CMOs, CEOs, the non-finance business partners, what would be the answer? So if the finance function is not coping with the change, with the business change, is the function really getting obsolete? Because if we do not change, if we do not speed up, it would be lagging behind significantly. So that's the question mainly. And let's look into some of the reasons why why the business world has changed lately, especially in the last 15, 20 years. Number one change is the technology, of course, as we all know. Remember Y2K? Until late 90s, end of 90s, the whole IT industry was busy and totally focused on fixing the issues related to Y2K. So not much development was happening. But as soon as the Y2K was over, there was a focus and concentration of the new development. And what we have seen in the last 15 years is amazing. It was not imaginable in terms of the online applications, in terms of the strong, powerful ERP systems we have today, mainly benefiting the finance organization, finance function. So what is the impact of that information technology on the finance function? Well, we don't need any more bookkeepers. And bookkeepers have upgraded themselves to do the job of accountants. Accountants found themselves doing the job of controllers. Controllers found them doing the job of CFOs. What CFOs are doing? CFOs are still doing CFO's job, in many cases, controller's job. So that's one thing that we have not been able to really redefine the finance function in the new era of innovation and change which is happening everywhere. The second major reason which has impacted the business world is increasing compliance. Until the late 90s, the finance function was pretty excited, really playing a role of business partners. But as the century turned, around 2000, 2001, some high-profile corporate scandals, Enron, WorldCom, they changed the scenario. And finance functions become much more cautious, rather confused, whether to play the role of a business partner or the role of a controller. And since then, it really depends upon the individual profile of a CFO in a business organization, whether they are like more like a business partner or more like a controller. So compliance and change in technology. The third major impact, probably the most strongest one, is the globalization. And we all know how rapidly the globalization has happened. The impact of globalization on the businesses is that they are far more competitive. If they are far more competitive, they need far more strategy, far more in-depth insight to run their businesses. And that is where they look at the finance to provide decision support. Unfortunately, generally speaking again, finance is not geared to provide decision support as much as required by businesses. Today's businesses are extremely complicated business machines. The subject of strategy has significantly changed, and they need much more in-depth information. And generally speaking, our support from finance to the businesses is very lukewarm. One of the reasons, if we look at the finance function, why the function is not coming up fast, look at the curriculum of all the certifications we have. Now, we are producing accountants, and we do need accountants, but really, that's the focus of all these qualifications. There is a very little part of the curriculum which is related to the leadership development or strategy, managing business strategy, and that is why we have a lot of accountants and less of business manager in the finance function. Now, the way finance function works, you can split the career into two parts. One is early to mid-career, and second part mid to the top, mid to the CFOs. Now, first part goes very well because we have very competent, qualified accountants, and they start on a very good note, make good progress for the first 10, 12, maybe 15 years. The problem starts when they hit the middle, because in middle, the game started to change. And we don't have much guided, structured training and development for those mid-career professionals. That is where they struggle. And that is where they need to transition from an accountant to a business manager. And many are able to do it, majority really struggle. Peter Drucker was an amazing futurist. I'm a big fan of him. This is what he said in 1997. Universities won't survive. The future is outside the traditional campus, outside the traditional classroom. The distance learning is coming up fast. Now, look at that. This was in 1997. Today, we could clearly see the trends happening that, but he was able to see that 15 years ago. And if we look back in our accounting curriculum, it's not only that curriculum is not changing fast enough to meet the business requirement, how much online education we have in the accounting or finance side, very little, very limited. And the dilemma is that most of the professionals in the mid-level are living in their job day in and day out, day in and day out. They are so much occupied with their job responsibilities that even if they were willing to really go and develop themselves in terms of the leadership and professional development, they don't have time. They cannot take the risk of really leaving their job responsibilities behind and spend time on training and education and development. So that's another dilemma with the finance people. So the question is that usually in these type of forums, the finance conferences or CFO conference, we spend time really self-praising ourselves, how good the job we are doing. I have taken the courage to really look a little deeper into the reality where we are. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, I have been able to distort the accountant inside me long time. In my career, I spent more time working closely with the businesses, getting involved with the balance scorecard in the early part of 90s when the balance scorecard was very new. This gave me the opportunity to look more from a business point of view and understand what businesses are requiring. And that is why I spend a lot of time in activity-based costing, balance scorecard, those type of initiatives which really help the businesses to make better decisions. So in my experience working in different part of the world, different regions from Asia, starting originally from Pakistan to Asia Pacific, to United States, to North America, to Europe, to Middle East, I still see people making remarks that we are bean counters. And some of us are really happily doing bean counting job. This is the time to wake up. How many people have read this book? Raise your hands. Quite a few. This is one of the best-selling title on leadership or business leadership. If you have to read one book in your life, that's the one. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. This is a little older book, like 25 years, maybe 30 years, but it's still selling as a bestseller. And I read that book about 15 years ago. And I got very inspired from a leadership point of view. I took it as my personal framework to adopt as much as I could do and practice as much as I could do from this framework. And thinking about this model, very powerful model which Stephen Covey shared in this book, I was thinking of the finance leadership, more specifically the CFO leadership. And Stephen Covey, the basic model, those of you who have not read this book, it's very simple. So he describes the leadership into two areas, the private victories, basically the personal leadership, 3 habits which are focused on improving personal productivity, personal performance. And the next 3 habits are related to the public leadership. He calls it public victories. And on top of the 6 habits, he surrounds it from the 7th habit, which is called sharpening the saw. You know what does it mean, sharpening the saw? And Covey describes that 7th habit with a very powerful and beautiful story. And the story goes like this. A man sitting in the woods trying to saw down a tree hectically, and an old man passes by and looks at that man and asks him, "What are you doing?" The man says, "Don't you see? I'm trying to saw down the tree." The old man says, "But you look tired." Man says, "Yes, it's a tough job. How long have you been working?" 6-7 hours. Old man thought for a moment and said, "Why don't you take a break and sharpen your saw?" Man replied, "I don't have time." How many of us are trying to saw down our trees and we don't have time to look back at our saw and sharpen it? Looking back at the leadership framework given by Stephen Covey. And as I said, I was looking at the CFO leadership model. And personal leadership and public leadership is applicable to any type of leadership. But I brought the element of the strategic leadership into it from a CFO point of view, because this is very critical. Now, you could survive without any strategy education probably until the mid-level of the finance career. But as you move beyond the mid to the top, strategy becomes very, very important. And as I mentioned, that today's business models are extremely complicated machines. Strategy is no more an option. Businesses are adopting and changing strategy very rapidly. And if we are not trained in this subject, it's very difficult for us to support the businesses we are supposed to. Then working on the theme model, as I have been introduced, and many of you know that I have been leading Middle East CFO Alliance, the largest private CFO network in Middle East. I had the opportunity to look at a lot of careers and look at the professional issues and sense it and see from an individual point of view. So I started to work on this model a little bit, expanding it. And the three dimensions of the CFO leadership, calling the personal leadership, strategic leadership, and public leadership. What is personal leadership? Personal leadership is all about self-discipline, self-control. This is really the fundamental, the foundation of leadership, without which there is no leadership. And that is what we need to really focus upon and develop ourselves if we really want to become an outstanding leader or the CFO. Public leadership is all about creating an influence. And influence is so critical, so important for the CFO role. Unfortunately, this is also the most neglected area for CFOs. Now, I see all the time CFOs, very competent, very qualified, very trained, very seasoned, very polished, but frustrated. Why? Because they say, my CEO does not listen to me, my board does not listen to me. And they have fantastic ideas. But the reason CEO and the board do not listen to those CFOs, they don't have influence. Influence is the vehicle which takes your ideas across. If you are very knowledgeable, very competent, it's useless unless your ideas are accepted and adopted by other people. And that's where comes influence. So public leadership, in my opinion, is very complex, expanded area, but ultimately it boils down to the creating an influence on the people around you. And finally, strategic leadership. Now, the term or the phrase strategy is very cheap. And 99% of the corporate executives think that they know all about strategy without any training, without any formal development. And they can talk about a strategy. But it's really not that easy subject. It's getting complex and complicated. You can deal with the strategy if you are a strategist. To become a strategist, you need to develop strategic thinking, which is very different. And again, there is a lot of confusion and misunderstanding about the strategic thinking. What is that? But in my opinion, if you are a CFO or you want to become a CFO, strategic thinking is fundamental. You need to work hard on it. And I'll explain to you a few ideas how to do it. So continue working on that model. Last year, I made a survey out of the 5,000 finance professionals through the MECA platform, and asking them that from a career point of view, from finance career point of view, what is the number one question is in their heads? And it comes up with a question of the title of my speech in their mind, and I got 200 replies actually, exactly, close to 200. And the question was, what it really takes to become a CFO. And I took that seriously, and I said, let me try. So it's not that we have cracked the code, really, but I think we have got very close to it. And based on that, I created this framework of CFO leadership competency model, which explains what it comprises in personal leadership, public leadership, and strategic leadership. There are 10 competencies, as you can see there. And I'll briefly explain all these competencies in this conversation. But if you can notice that all of those competencies ultimately results in creating an influence, which is the most important CFO characteristic. And they are all connected, by the way. You cannot start developing your strategic ability or strategic thinking without working on your personal leadership or public leadership. You cannot really sharpen or polish your public leadership skills without ensuring that you have covered your personal productivity skills. It's all connected together. It's also a lot to do with the mindset. And My advice to the professionals who want to really go faster on this journey of developing themselves into a C-level executive is to first work on your mindsets. Because if your beliefs are not correct, you may not be able to develop what you want to develop. You may spend a lot of time and resources, but it would only create friction inside you. You need to clarify your values first. So I recommend 6 mindsets to start that journey of becoming a CFO. And those 6 mindsets, number 1 you see here, is a free agent society. Actually, we are transitioning very fast into a freelance society or free agent society, whatever you call it. The average job tenures are rapidly reducing. At the end of 2010, the average job tenure for a CFO in USA was 2.4 years. It's a little better now because that was the peak of the economic meltdown. But globally, it's around plus minus 3 years. Lifelong jobs with one employer are the things of past. It doesn't happen anymore. So in a free agent society, there are no long-term contracts or guarantees for job security. In fact, there is no job security. Employer would continue to keep you as long as you remain valuable. Valuable, very important. It's not about your job description, you're creating value. You are employed, you are hired as long as there is value. Similarly, from your point of view as a professional, you would continue to work for an employer as long as you see value from your point of view. It's a free agent society. The two parties work together as long as they see a mutual value. If there is no mutual value, that contract is ended at any point of time. It leads to the second belief or the second mindset: all jobs are temporary, profession is permanent. Focus on these words: all jobs are temporary. It could be 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, even 20 years, but it's temporary. But what is permanent is your career or your profession. I have been a finance professional all of my life. I was controller for a very long period of time. Now I'm CFO for the last 15 years. And I would remain a CFO. How long would I continue with my current employer? I have no idea. But I would remain a CFO because my focus is my profession. And if your focus is on your profession, if you are a controller, try to become the best controller in the world. Try to be the top 10% within your profession. If you are a CFO, same. Try to become the best CFO in the world. And that would not, now it triggers another point, that should you be loyal to your current employer in the era of a lack of job security? Of course, like a good consultant. When a consultant is working temporarily on a project, they are fully dedicated, committed to that project. Even if you know that your job is temporary, you must professionally commit to your current employer. But if you put all of your loyalties and focus on that current employer, you would not be able to develop yourself professionally. Especially in small to medium organizations, where there are less opportunities and capacity for professional development, you might be busy all the time doing your job and not really developing yourself professionally. So mindset is that my profession is more important. More loyalty to the profession. I would try to become the best CFO in the world. And if you keep that focus, you are automatically serving your current employer, automatically. Even if that employer is a small organization, because they may not have a capacity, but you are going on your own. What does it mean? Let me congratulate you, all of you here. You are here out of your busy work life to find one day to spend among the competent professional people and learn what is happening latest in the profession or in the world or in the business world. Not everybody else is able to do it. Most of the people want to, but they cannot do it. So at least you have found time to develop yourself, to train yourself with the latest things. And this would go a long way rewarding your employer, whether you have come on your own initiative or you have been sent by your employer. It would reward both the parties. So that's the second mindset. Profession is more critical, more important. Third thing, it's really not about the work-life balance in today's time. All of us as a senior finance professionals are committed 24/7, whether you accept it or not. That's the new standard, that's the new criteria. You have a certain level of responsibilities and you are committed 24/7 for that part. So, is it possible that you are at work and you don't think about your family or cannot think about family? Doesn't happen, right? Similarly, if you are seriously committed to your profession or work, can't you think of the work at your personal life? Not possible, right? So you cannot live in compartments. Get out of the compartments, because compartments create a prison for you. And I see many people all the time that they 9 to 5 they're in prison, and they are released every day from the prison. And the Monday is torturous, horrible, because after 2 days of freedom they have to get back into the prison. Well, change your mindset, integrate your life, integrate your values. All of my life, from the very beginning of my career, I did not mind really doing small personal jobs at work. But at the same time, there was hardly any weekend I did not do corporate job at my home. That was integration. It all goes by priority. Whatever is more important, many times your family is priority. Of course, you have to attend to family. But sometimes work is important, more important. And if you could afford it, of course, work becomes more important. It's integrated life, very important in today's work business environment. Integrated life, forget about the work-life balance. Growth. Growth is a natural human need, realize that. Now, when we are born as a baby, there is a lot of growth, physical growth, right? And until the adulthood, we continue to physically grow. And even in the adulthood, you continue with your education development, going to the college and universities. Even when you start your career, there is a lot of growth. So it's all growth. A natural human need is being fulfilled. Problem starts when you hit the middle of the career or midlife crisis, because there is a stagnation for most of us. And that stagnation bothers, especially in the mid-career crisis. It's pyramid, right? Not everybody could go on the top, not everybody could become a CFO. But what you could do, you could continue developing yourself, you are continually growing yourself. Don't limit yourself by the scope of your responsibilities, because many people would say, I'm a controller, I'm already doing my job, why should I really learn other things? That's your scope of responsibility. You should go by your scope of capability, what you are capable of. So you may have a certain defined limit of job. Think about your capability, what you are capable of, and keep developing yourself from the scope of capability, not by scope of responsibility. Because that's a trick, that's a trap. If you think more about your responsibility, you're trapped and you may not develop and continue developing yourself professionally and from a leadership point of view. Next is really our job, roles, responsibilities do not matter. What really matters is results. What results you are achieving as a professional? What accomplishments you are achieving? What you could list on your resume or CV as your results and achievement, not your job responsibilities and functions. When I moved from Pakistan to United States, my basic concern was that how would they accept me? I'm fully educated in Pakistan, my MBA, my CPA from Pakistan. I was thinking that maybe I have to do my CPA again. Fortunately, by the time I moved to the corporate world in USA, I already have enough results on my resume, results, achievements. And I could tell you, nobody ever asked about my Pakistani education. They were always looking for my results and achievements. So yes, education is important to a certain level of time after you start your career, but soon the game changes. And it's all about results and achievement. So if you are mid-career professional, focus on results. Forget about any more certifications. They are really not required. They are important in the early part of your career. The second part of your career, especially in today's time, is all about learning new skills. That really matters. And based on that, achieving your results. Final thing is that you must meet or see a lot of people around you say, look, I don't have a good boss. I'm in the wrong company. Environment is bad. Culture is not right. There is discrimination against certain races and nationalities. What does it mean? You are limited. By the way, there might be some truth into it. I'm not saying there is no truth. But by believing into it, you limit yourself. You limit your potential. You are handicapping yourself. Because you are saying, this is not in my control. These are external forces which are impacting me. If you take the responsibility, being truthful to you, yes, there is some reality, but I could do something. I could talk to the people, I could influence them. You take the control back. And if you change the belief that you are responsible, everything in your life, you're not happy or happy is because of you. You are responsible for it and you can change it. There is a very interesting analogy I shared earlier. Let me quickly share it with you. People say, life is miserable, life is a problem, life is a pain, life is a torture, life is a challenge. I would say, life is a movie. And if, with that analogy, if you think of life as a movie, it starts pretty softly, but the story builds up very quickly, right? And you find yourself very quickly in the middle. And when you hit the middle of your movie or your life, it's full of crisis, full of challenges, full of excitement, right? And with all those crises, challenges, problems, the good news is that you are the director of that your life movie. Being a director of your life movie, you can change the script if you want it. You can bring the new cast if you want it. You can bring the end to a happy ending if you want it. That's your life movie. So 6 mindsets are very important. Many of you follow my blogs, but those of you who don't, SaleemSufi.com is my blog site. And you would find all these ideas and concepts in terms of some blogs there. This Get Out of Busyness Syndrome was my most popular blog. And I wrote it because many people said, all these philosophies you're talking about are not practical. Because we are so busy in our job, I cannot afford to really do this networking and professional ideas you're suggesting. So what do I do? And I said, let me think about it. And I wrote a blog. These are actually 10-step formula to get out of busyness syndrome. Now, what is busyness? It's an addiction. There is some truth into it. We are all busy, but we get addicted to busyness because we feel important. It's a sense of job security that if I'm busy, if I'm working 14 hours a day for my employer, I'm secure because they think I'm working very hard. Is it really? So productivity is very, very important for all of us to really build upon our leadership. The good news is everybody in this world are given the same resources. From the President of the United States to a junior clerk in a company, they're all given 24/7. So you cannot really complain. It's not about schedules, it's about the value management. How do you manage your value? We spend all of our life working for our employers, helping them achieve their business mission and vision, and forget the purpose of our own life. Goes back to the life integration. Integrate your life. By the way, work is a very integral part of life. There is no life without work. It's natural. Economic activity has to be there, but it has to be integrated. Why do we need to live in compartment? Okay, emotional intelligence, a very fundamental, important subject neglected by most leadership. Even if you go to some leadership advanced courses, you would not find the subject of emotional intelligence. My good friend Matt Lewis is a senior partner right here in Dubai. He worked for Boyden, and I brought him to one of the previous MECA conferences to speak up. And he said, by the way, Boyden is the 4th largest executive search firm in the world, and he's a senior partner. He said, for CFOs, the number one quality they look in the new role search is emotional intelligence. Now, how many of us really have a formal training in emotional intelligence, or have we read any book or article on emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the fundamental foundation of all other relationship, speech, values, performance, behaviors, as you could see in this diagram. Branding, and we are probably the worst professionals in marketing. If you talk to marketers, good marketers, they would tell you that if you do a good branding, you can sell a wristwatch for $20,000. Now, who would spend $20,000 to watch time? People do it because of the branding. So it's not really important what you think about yourself. You may be very capable, rightly so, and you think rightly so, but what other people think about you? What is your brand? How people see you? That really matters in today's world. Have you looked at your LinkedIn profile from an external point of view? When someone opens your LinkedIn profile, what impression do they get? You may think it's not important because I'm already working for a company, so the most important thing is to make my boss happy and that's it. Well, again, go back to the other mindsets, how the world is changing. It's very important that you maintain a brand internally as well as externally. Presentation skills or communication. I call it weapon of mass influence. Presentation skills. You can talk, you can meet people, you can talk to people in small groups or individually, but when you talk to people in groups, like I'm talking to all of you, more than 150, maybe 200 people here, right? That gives you leverage, and that gives you an opportunity to influence massive level. So as a CFO, this is our, generally speaking, weakness. And we need to work hard on this skill from the very beginning. And I did some research, and I was very disappointed. In my CFO coaching group, some of you remember, I shared a video clip from the Walmart CFO speaking to the shareholders. Walmart is the largest company in the world, $500 billion CFO is speaking to the shareholders. You see yourself. Okay, people leadership. So, why the people leadership has become suddenly so important? Apple market value is $733 billion this week. $733 billion. If you look at their balance sheet, it's only $124 billion. So, where is that $600 billion? And that's the dilemma, that's the problem our non-finance friends encounter. That why are you not capturing all that value? It's a real value. Investors are willing to bid that price, $733 billion for Apple. We capture only $124 billion on the financial balance sheet, $600 billion in the year. But you know the answer, right? It's in the intangibles. And what are the intangibles? The people, culture, technology, leadership, customer value. All these things really matter, and $600 billion is here. So people are the most important ingredient of that intangible assets. Realize how critical, important responsibility you have to lead those people if you are one of the leaders. So you are trying to manage and lead the most important resource of that company. It's not easy. And leadership is not just leading people. It's about employee enablement. And again, I have shared that some other forums. There are 4 important things from an employee enablement point of view. So if you're a leader, ensure that work processes are simplified for employees. You don't hire good people and dump them in an environment. You make them work, you enable them. Work processes are simplified. Job skills, their skills are matched with the job demands. That's your responsibility. Reward system, your responsibility. And work-life integration, also your responsibility. 4 areas to make employees work or enable. Relationship. What you see here is a very good saying. We don't sell product and services to customers, we sell relationship. Relationship is the vehicle on which you ride your career journey, right? So that's important everywhere. Relationship facilitates your job, make it much more easier. And again, a finance professional, we are generally weak in it. We live within our own world. We get together and we self-praise and we award ourselves the best CFO of the year, best controller of the year. Because generally speaking, again, there are exceptions, so don't take me wrong that I'm criticizing everyone. There are very good professionals who have good relationship, but generally speaking, at the professional level, our relationship skill is also very weak. Now, there is a study. It is generally believed that relationship works in B2C, or the perception or the brand, because you can create a brand for the massive level for the consumer. But in a B2B relationship, it's always logic. Even relationship doesn't work. It's logic, because you are dealing with professional buyers in other companies. Well, latest research has proved that even in those cases, B2B relationship matters, because we are all human beings. Have you ever hired a person you didn't like, even if that person has all the required qualification and experience? Right? No, never. Because we go by our emotions, we go by relationship. We only hire people we like, and then we create a justification for that hiring. Strategy, no more option. So if you are not into it, please get ready. Strategy is going to evolve in each and every job. So strategy starts with a strategic thinking, and a strategic thinking requires a different environment. You cannot do in your firefighting mood. You cannot do everyday commute strategic thinking. And it has to be very innovative, because there is no boundaries. Your today or the past was future some time ago, right? Someone created the circumstances to create that past or present as the present, but at some point in time it was future. So last year I had the opportunity to go back to Harvard Business School. And a little story to explain how the strategic thinking works. I was sitting in the 62 other participants who are basically global executives coming from different parts of the world. So very diverse group. And probably half of them were smarter than me by the law of averages. And you know the Harvard Business School, the educational method, case studies. So for 6 days, we were sitting with the 62 group of participants, very talented people, and 2 legendary professors were guiding us. And we were discussing case study after case study, and of course those case studies were the latest cases being practiced by the best of the best companies in the world. This is Dr. Robert Kaplan, co-founder of the Balanced Scorecard. Very humble person, very supportive. I especially chose this program to go back to learn from him again, and I learned a lot of Balanced Scorecard strategy from him. So after 6 days, I took a lot of notes, and honestly speaking, because I keep myself very updated with the books and articles and the things going on, from the contents point of view, there was not much new for me in that program. But the main thing was experience. When I passed through that 6 days with 62 executives and 2 legendary professors, that was the experience. And when I was compiling those notes after 6, so imagine, I was out of my work environment, I was not even with my family. It was a new environment, very stimulating, very innovative, very inspiring. And 6 days going through those case studies, making notes, and then I was compiling notes. Those compilations started to give me new ideas. Thought generates thought, remember? Very close to strategic thinking. And those thoughts were so good, I felt so good. I wrote few blogs and shared with them. I got a very good response. And I said, good, that is how strategic thinking happens. So you need to find the right environment. Talk to the people who are smarter than you and address the question nobody has asked before. That is strategic thinking. So I'm wrapping up now. For the organizers not to get worried, I'm not getting very stretched here. So what has changed in the business world from a value creation point of view, from a strategy point of view, in fact? So in the CFO leadership competency model, in the strategic leadership, there are 3 competencies. Strategic thinking, I explained to you. Value creation, number 2, and performance management, number 3. So let's talk about value creation. This is a typical flow of value creation in today's business model. So it's still about the shareholders' value creation, by the way. It was a fundamental reason for any business organization to be in existence. That is still true. But before that, before you create shareholders' value, you need to create a lot of other values, mainly the customer value. And that is what has changed. So in this typical model, there are 3 stakeholders in any business model, or most business model: shareholders, customers, employees. They're still there. But now they are connected link. In this diagram, notice that the value is being generated from the bottom. So it's employees. All those companies like Google, Apple, Microsoft, their main resource, people, right? People are creating value. The 2 boxes on the side, information technology, leadership, and culture, they are enablers. They enable the employees to perform better, to create more value, and that is how the value creation works. When these 3 things work together, there is a lot of customer value is created. And customer value, the good company knows that very well, that in order to create shareholders value, they have to create a lot of customer value. Now we don't have time to really go into detail what is customer value, but this is not financial value only. These values we are talking about are financial and non-financial, intangible and tangible, long-term and short-term, internal and external. It's a very new concept. When you create a customer value, so a company like Apple, for example, $733 billion, think of that. Balance sheet only $124 billion. There is extreme level of customer value. I myself and many of you are hardcore loyal Apple customers, right? I'm a big fan. I tried to switch to Galaxy Samsung last year. I didn't like the product. I switched back to iPhone. And now I'm very clear. I'm going to use iPhone as long as it exists, right? That's the customer value. That's the customer loyalty, which has a value, right? The problem is, now you would appreciate this and pay attention to it. What we do in financial systems, we are not capable to record customer value. We don't recognize it, right? There is no system of recording employee value or customer value. We don't have a mechanism. We are running the modern organization with 500-year-old accounting system, which does not have that capacity. It's a very new phenomena, value creation. So what we do, we only record shareholders' value. We only record when a sales invoice is created. We say, now we see the value. Now there is value. Let's book it in the financial system. Well, the whole game is happening before that. The frustration from our business partners, the non-financial business partner, is that, look, I'm doing 90% of the work before an invoice is created, and you only come at the last moment just to book the last end of the value creation process. So that's one dilemma. Not many people are realizing that the finance system is not really capturing the main value creation. We don't capture the $600 billion of Apple in the financial system. It's only the $124 billion. Second thing is that it's no more about managing numbers or managing financials, honestly. There is no financial management. Even there is no strategic financial management. So those professionals, my respectful friends, who say, well, our role is limited to the strategic financial management. There is no strategic financial management because you cannot create a separate strategy for financials only. It's all integrated, it's linked together. It's only business strategy. And it's about performance management. You cannot manage financially, forget about it. It's closely interrelated system and model. So as CFOs, I'm not suggesting that even at junior level you could do it, but need to understand that at CFO level, if you really want to become a business partner, a strategic partner, you need to focus on performance management or value creation process, not managing numbers or financials only. I would finally explain, this is last slide. So there has been a lot of debate and talk about the role of CFOs. You must have heard. Emerging role of CFOs, evolving role of CFOs. Why there is so much question? But these are good, legitimate questions because there is really so much confusion. Even within CFO community, what is the role? As I said, some would say that controlling is the main role. Some would say business partnership is the main role. I created an analogy of the role of CFO. So think of a high performance business as a high performance automotive car. And before you start a journey in a high-performance business car, what you want to do, you want to ensure that there is a right functionality, there is a right air pressure in the tires, the battery is working, the electrical system is okay, right? Same for the business. Before you really start a big venture or start running a high-performance business, you want to ensure all the parts of the business is working properly. This is done by back-end department, production, quality, engineering, they take care of the business, right? Supply chain, everything is working functional. But as soon as you start the journey in a high-performance car or high-performance business, three critical front-end roles come to the picture, three critical roles. Number one, CEO, of course. CEO is the driver of that high-performance car, sitting in the driving seat. And his role is to steer the car in the right direction. And CEO knows the destination very clearly, where he has to go. Second role, sales and marketing. They are totally focused on running the car at a good speed. So they are focused on the accelerator or the gas pedal. Keep running the car, and whatever the car speed, CEO is going to steer and drive in the right direction. The third important critical role is CFO, sitting next to CEO, next passenger seat. What is the role of CFO? Two roles. Number one is the controls and compliance. So you have brakes in the car, right? Why do you have brakes in the car? To stop the car? That's a wrong mindset. You have the brakes in the car so that you could drive the car faster. That's exactly the reason of the controls and compliance. And we have misunderstood ourselves, and we have made it misunderstood by our business partners that controls are to really make my job difficult. No, it's there to help you run your business faster. That's the role of CFO. So that is why CFO all the time, not necessarily CFO is pushing pressure on the brakes. That's not the job. He just wants to ensure that it's very well functionable. So when there is a need, he would put the pressure on the brakes to avoid further damage. This is exactly you do in the car driving, right? That's the role of CFO. The other important role of CFO is a navigator. So CEO knows the destination. For example, driving from California to New York, CEO knows that I'm going in the direction of New York. But which highway to take, which turns to make, which directions, that's the role of CFO. Guide from street to street. No, don't go this highway. There is a work going on, or there is a bad patch, don't go there. Take this highway, take this turn. Role of CFO, navigator or a dashboard. Why would CEO, if you are a CEO, or if you are a driver of a good performance car, why would you rely on a GPS? What are the conditions that you would rely? Two conditions. Number one, you would ensure that the GPS is a good functionality. GPS is a good brand. So you know that it would not really malfunction, number one. Number two, you would ensure that GPS has updated updated maps. Very important, because the maps are changing. If the GPS does not have the updated maps, you might be misguided, you might get lost. So these are the two conditions you would ensure. Think of the high performance business. Why CEO should rely on a CFO as his navigator? Two conditions again. Do you have a good brand, your reputation, your character? Because what you think is not important, what CEO thinks is important, number one. Number two, what is updated maps? Updated maps is your understanding of the value creation cycle of your business. Do you really understand that? Do you really understand the slide which I showed you? It could be a little different for your business. Do you deeply understand that? And if your CEO believes that you understand deeply that value creation cycle, he would trust you like a GPS, otherwise it would be very difficult. How many CFOs really understand or think or even believe that they have to spend time understanding the value creation model of their businesses? That's all I have for the great answer, what it takes to become a CFO. As I said, we have not cracked the code, but we are getting very close. Thank you very much.